Conservative new media viewers and JLin fans around the world, what is up? It's me, PFV, Paulette Villarreal, the NBA expert, and I'm here to talk about some of the remarks that I made in the Dallas video. And I know a couple of people weren't happy with me because of what I said regarding JLin's limitations, comparing him to a YMCA player and discussing Jeremy as regards his ability or inability, in my opinion, to deal with the speed of the game, particularly when the game is quick. I know that commenters Ray B. and Leo Dalian weren't happy with me, and I'm sure other people weren't happy either. And I think things might have gotten misunderstood in what I said. So that's why I want to make this video. I also will comment on Dwight Howard's new remarks that you guys pointed out to me, as well as the new Chris Baldwin article from Culture Map Houston. But I want to go over the things that I mentioned first. These things, the YMCA player, all this stuff. Okay, let's just start right from the beginning. First of all, I understand why people aren't happy. You guys look to me and look to these videos to be kind of a haven in the storm of haterland. And so when I say things like this, or I start talking about Jeremy and limitations and this stuff, it sounds like I'm a hater too. And when Jeremy has a tough night, or the coaching staff doesn't do him right and doesn't play him much, then it's kind of like, well, where can you go to get a fair opinion about Jeremy? Or you don't want to hear more criticism of Jeremy because it already feels like he's gotten treated poorly. And so if I sound like I'm dissing him too, then you don't want to hear that. And I know that looking at sites, JeremyLin.net, some of these other sites, if Jeremy doesn't do well, or if he isn't treated well, then a whole bunch of trolls come into these sites, and they start trying to put Jeremy down too. So again, it almost feels like I'm betraying Jeremy or betraying you guys if I say certain things after Jeremy has a tough night. But this is what I said earlier in the season regarding not being on an emotional roller coaster. Look, I wasn't happy after the Dallas game. I wasn't happy at all, which is part of the reason why the video came out the way that it did, and the format or lack of format that it had. I wasn't happy, but I try to stay a little calmer than maybe some other fans, just to try to have more forward-looking vision. One game is one game. It's not a season. It's just one game. So we have to look at it like that, or try to kind of keep that in perspective, even if we're not happy about what happened in the game, particularly right after the game ends. So let's go over this piece by piece, okay? The first thing, let's talk about the limitations thing. Now, I mentioned this in the comments, because I went down, I wrote responses to, I think, Leo Dalian and others. Every player, including the greatest players, have limitations. Athletically or just experience-wise, whatever it is. I made the example in the comments about LeBron James. And I said LeBron James has an unbelievable vertical jump. And that is particularly true when he jumps off of one leg. If you've ever played basketball much, or you know much about it, you will know that some guys are one-legged jumpers and other guys are two-legged jumpers, meaning that some guys are better in one of those two instances. I know when I played, I was a one-legged jumper. I was not nearly as good jumping with two legs as I was with one leg. LeBron James is more of a one-legged jumper than a two-legged jumper. His vertical, when he jumps with both legs, isn't nearly as much as it is when he jumps with one leg. I gave the example of Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley was actually good at both. He was outstanding jumping from two legs. he's a better two-legged jumper than LeBron James is, even though LeBron's a better player than Charles Barkley is. So compared to Charles Barkley, LeBron James is limited as a two-legged jumper. But that doesn't mean he's not a great player. Jeremy has limitations as an athlete, as a player. Some of them are because of what his athletic talent is, and some of them, many of them, are because of his experience level. Jeremy isn't the fastest guy laterally with his feet, side to side. That doesn't mean he can't be a great player, and that doesn't mean he can't improve that thing. But when I talk about limitations, I'm talking about his limitations overall and just right now. I have to be honest about it. I have to say what I see. Jeremy is a good defensive player, or he's proven that he can be that. As I mentioned, he was a plus defender, a good category defender when he was in New York. He's capable of that. We saw it in the Portland game. We saw it in the first Dallas game. We saw it in the Utah game. He can do this. So when I say that he has limitations, I'm not trying to diss him or say that he's not a good player or he can't be a good defender. Just trying to say the honest assessment of what I see. He still has to keep working on his defense, which is fine. That's expected for a young player who's not a defensive specialist. And he's probably never going to be elite in terms of just simple lateral foot speed. That's fine. As I said in the comments, Steve Nash, the great Steve Nash, two-time league MVP, was never a great defender. And I don't think Steve ever had particularly good lateral foot speed. So it's important to be able to talk about things with Jeremy realistically or honestly without getting too sensitive about it, I think. Again, I know the timing might have been bad. You guys don't want to hear me sound like I'm defending McHale and not playing him, but I never said that. What I'm saying is that this matchup with Shane Larkin and Monte Ellis, that's tough for a defender. And it's particularly tough if your lateral foot speed isn't great or your defense isn't on target that evening. Do I think Patrick Beverley can stop Monte Ellis? No. I mean, I think we saw examples of that during the game. I think Patrick Beverley's going to stop Shane Larkin. Probably not very much. Patrick's better than Jeremy probably as an isolation defender, one-on-one defender. Patrick probably has a little bit quicker feet moving side to side, and he's smaller than Jeremy. So these things help Patrick just be a good defender. That's part of his niche as a player. And so that comes into play in this game. It did come into play. And it particularly comes into play because of James Harden's deficiencies as a defender, which I'll talk about Harden a little bit more later in the video. So just to summarize here, some limitations are inherent. Some guys simply are not great athletes in one particular dimension or another. Byron Mullins, the backup center, power forward for the Clippers, he's just not a good athlete. And so there are issues there. Again, Jeremy may never have elite lateral foot speed. That's part of it. The second part of it is many limitations can be worked with, like Steve Nash in defense. There are ways to adjust to those things, even if you're not great at them. Number three, limitations can also be improved. You can improve on different things. We know that Jeremy worked on his defensive stance and his defense period this summer. I know that. I remember seeing him talk about it. So I'm not sitting here telling you that Jeremy sucks. And I'm just trying to give a kind of an honest assessment of him right now as a player and in this game as a player. So that's the limitation issue. Okay, now let's turn to this whole thing about the YMCA player and what I said about that. Number one, I didn't come up with the YMCA player thing. That somebody else said that, and I read it, and then I wanted to respond to it or use it. The reason why I came up with it, the reason why I mentioned it, is because I have heard JLin fans say to me after games, when Jeremy doesn't do well, they'll get all depressed. They'll feel down. And they'll be like, oh, he's really not that good. He didn't look that good. He's not a top-level player. So the YMCA player thing, when I mentioned it, it's not to diss Jeremy. It's actually the opposite of that. The point of it is that no matter how bad you think Jeremy looks in one game or in one stretch of time, he's better than that. And so I bring that up to kind of make people feel better, not to put him down, but to say, even if you don't think he looks like a top-level NBA player, or you think he looks like a YMCA player, very shortly after that, he can look like the MVP of the league. So he didn't look great in the Dallas game for a number of reasons. One of them being he didn't get to play very much. He didn't get to develop a rhythm. But my bringing up the YMCA analogy is to help people feel better about Jeremy, not to make Jeremy look worse. It's to say, don't worry about it. He can look incredible the next time he plays. Some guys that play, they look amazing, even when they're not any good. It's kind of like Patrick. Patrick looks like he's an incredible defender because he's doing everything and he's putting a lot of energy out there. He looks like he'd be a great defender. And he is a good defender, but maybe not as great of a defender as it looks like he might be based upon his activity level. Jeremy's the opposite of that, which is why I said in the original Dallas video, Jeremy is a 5-on-5 player rather than a 1-on-1 player. And what I mean by that is there are guys who are just incredible athletes all the way around, and they're great at 1-on-1. They're not as great when they play in a team setting. Jeremy's an excellent athlete. We know that. He's strong. He's unbelievably fast straight ahead. He can jump, etc. But he's better as a 5-on-5 player than he is as a 1-on-1 player. So that goes to the YMCA player thing, because it doesn't matter how he always looks individually. It's about how he interacts with the team and how he affects a team and what he's capable of bringing to a team, particularly as a passer, and just the way he pumps up his teammates and gets everybody involved. So when I bring up the YMCA player thing, it sounds like a diss, but that's not what it is. It's the opposite of that. And I just want to clarify that. It's to help people who are fans of him feel better about him and his game, even when he doesn't have a great game. That's why I bring it up. That's the first place where I read it. It was somebody that's a fan saying that they felt down because he looks like a YMCA player. Yeah. Well, I just tried to take that and switch it around to make people feel okay. Yeah, we've seen that before. And then we see him go and look incredible and look like the MVP. So don't worry about it. Now, speed of the game thing. There's a couple issues with this. A couple of things that I meant when I brought up that the game might have looked too quick for him or whatever. One of Jeremy's primary advantages over other players is how fast he is. So when everybody else starts playing fast, it minimizes Jeremy's advantage. This is why I brought up the Oklahoma City series. And in the playoffs, everything's quicker. Everything's more intense. Well, you have to get used to that. And this is an experience thing. And this is why I mentioned in previous videos about Jeremy learning to play at different speeds, which is he's absolutely doing that so that he can be effective when the game is slower too. The Dallas game was very intense, and he was going against a couple guys that were pretty quick. Not Jose Calderon, but Shane Larkin and Monte Ellis in particular. Jeremy's still working at that, and he's still working at being able to thrive playing at a slower tempo or playing against other players that are fast. So I'm not trying to suggest that Jeremy can't hang in a quick game. I'm just saying that he can continue to work to get better at that. And again, it's the stuff Jeremy's not scared. That's part of what I tried to express in the video. He's not scared. Only haters are saying stuff like, "Oh, he's scared. He can't do this." No, that's nonsense. What I tried to point out is what he needs to do specifically. I'm trying to point out what scared, quote unquote, actually means, which is, how do I deal with the situation where some of my advantages are taken away? The way that you do that is by having a complete skill set. Good ball handling, good shooting, being used to an intense playoff type of atmosphere in a game. But we've seen Jeremy do well at that before. We've seen him being clutch against Toronto and New York. We saw him being clutch against Philadelphia, New York. We've seen him be clutch a million times in New York. We saw him being clutch against the OKC Thunder in the regular season last year. We've seen this before. So I know as well as anybody that Jeremy can handle that situation. What I'm saying is that the more he repeats doing it, the easier it's going to get. And that's part of what I meant with the speed issue. And he will continue to get better at playing at different speeds and playing at a quick speed as his skill set gets better, as his ball handling improves, as his decision making improves. And that's the second thing that I wanted to talk about. Jeremy can have issues with the speed of the game because of his decision making. Jeremy is a combination guard, a combo guard. He's a combination between a point guard and a shooting guard. The reason why that is because he played shooting guard at Harvard, and he has a lot of instincts towards scoring, which is more of what shooting guards tend to do, whereas point guards in general tend to pass more. Although that's kind of changing in today's NBA. You see more and more point guards who are almost score-first type of players. So Jeremy's still learning to make good decisions. And this is what we talk about him driving into the lane and not making passes that aren't there. And one of the things I mentioned in the video was he's getting better and better at that. But it's still something he needs to work on to improve. And he is working on it. But it's one thing to do something, learn a new skill, and do it like at 50 miles an hour. It's another thing to do it at 150 miles an hour. So when the game speeds up and Jeremy loses some of his advantages, and now his decision-making is pressed to its maximum limit, it's going to be a little bit tough for now. But as he keeps doing it, as he keeps experiencing it, and as he continues to build his skill level, it'll get easier and easier. So, all of these things taken together, YMCA player, limitations, speed of the game. I'm not dissing JLin. I'm trying to evaluate where he's at right now as a player and what he's going to continue to work on and where you're going to see improvements for him. And, you know, honestly, where some of the things are that he might never be great at, like the lateral foot speed. But I have complete confidence in him. Anybody that watches these videos or has watched them for a while knows that. Again, one of the main reasons why people really appreciated these videos during the 2012-2013 seasons, I know this because people have told me this repeatedly, is because I kept confident in Jeremy when a whole bunch of people lost confidence in him. And a whole bunch of people thought, oh, maybe it's not going to work out. No, I never felt that way. So I'm not the hater. I'm not the doubter. No matter how much what I say might sound like them, or how much a particular viewer or viewers might think I sound like a hater after a tough night for Jeremy. I'm not the enemy here. So we don't want to have circular firing squads where we're shooting at each other metaphorically as JLin fans. I know you guys don't want to hear certain stuff certain night, but I got to say what I got to say. And that's fine. You can say what you want to say. But I want to be clear here. I'm not a hater of JLin. I'm probably the biggest believer in him that there is, outside of maybe Jeremy himself and his family and his inner circle. Nobody believes in Jeremy more than I do. I know what he can do because I've already seen it. And I see how he's improving himself and how dramatically he's improved himself. And going to that point, I went and I looked up the statistics for the last 4 games because I mentioned this, but I didn't know the exact numbers in the Dallas video. The last 4 games, Jeremy has 19 assists and only 4 turnovers. That's almost a 5-to-1 assist-turnover ratio. If he had 20 assists, it would be 5-to-1, but he has 19. Okay, so it's almost there. That's incredible. If that's what we want, that's what he's doing to build his quote-unquote point guard reputation. Remember, haters always talking about, oh, he's a shooting guard. He's a shooting guard in a point guard's body. And no, nobody on Houston can throw alley-oops. And Jeremy's not really a point guard. Actually, he is a point guard. That's what he was at Palo Alto in high school. And that's what he's starting to show again that he is now. He's already showed again this year that he can score. Now he's starting to show that he can pass again and keep the turnovers low like people want him to. A number of you guys said in the comments of the Dallas video, you guys want him to just look out for himself and look out for his own stats. Well, he's kind of doing that. Even if that's not the plan, it's working out that way. This is why it's important to look at the whole game and look at everything that goes on in the game. This is why I was happy after the Boston game. I know a lot of you guys wanted him to score a bunch of points. It's not all about scoring points. Jeremy can score. I don't think anybody would doubt that. Even I heard somebody put something on JeremyLin.net, JLin Rose, who I don't think JLin's ever been the biggest JeremyLin fan. Let me just say that. I could be wrong about that, but I never thought JLin Rose and Kenny Smith were the biggest JeremyLin fans that ever lived. So I don't know if I'd be going to JLin Rose to listen to information as regards JeremyLin. That's just my own opinion. JLin Rose was saying something like, oh, JeremyLin's a streak shooter, like J.R. Smith is. Kind of, a little bit, maybe as a three-point shooter because he's new at it. But overall, no, he's not, JLin. And I say that because Jeremy's shooting like 50-something% this year. That's not a streak shooter. That's an awesome shooter. For a point guard to shoot 50-something%, that's unbelievably rare. So that's doubter talk. And I tell you guys this all the time, and I'll say it again right now. Do not go and listen to people who you know are going to say bad things about Jeremy. I'm not saying you only have to listen to me. Go and read Chris Baldwin. Go and listen to the guys in New York like Ian O'Connor and the other guy whose name escapes me from ESPN New York who like Jeremy. Don't listen to people who are going to tell you things that you don't want to hear, that are just going to rip Jeremy. Again, we've talked about this before. Don't touch the boiling pot because you know you're going to get burnt. So just don't touch it. Don't go looking for negativity because you'll find it, particularly as regards Jeremy. There's a whole bunch of people that don't want to like him and don't want to give him credit. If you look for them, you're going to get mad. And then you're just all you're doing is you're setting yourself up and you're giving that person clicks or views. And that makes them think, I should just keep on dissing Jeremy. Don't do that. Don't do that. Jeremy is playing great this year. His PER is still like 18.8 or 18.9, which is phenomenal, even after the Dallas game. The key thing for him, as I said, assist and turnovers. That ratio. And the last 4 games, it's been incredible. That's a long-term trend. So I'm not all shook up by the Dallas game or McHale stuff. I don't like it, but Jeremy's doing well. And keep working on the defense. And as I mentioned before, you can't improve everything at once. Jeremy's learning curve is very steep right now. He's learning incredibly quickly. He's improving incredibly quickly. He'll get there. He'll get there. Just one thing at a time. Look, I don't like the way McHale treats him. The same way that you guys don't like it. He does have a short leash. He doesn't get enough respect. He doesn't get enough credit. Kevin McHale is not a good coach, in my opinion. From what I understand, he and Daryl Morey are tight. If they weren't tight, if they didn't supposedly have a close relationship, then I'm not sure Kevin McHale would still be coaching the team. Let's just put it that way. But he is the coach of the team right now, so we got to deal with it. Jeremy's got to deal with it. Oh, he should say something. He should demand a trade. Come on, man. I mean, what? And then he ends up looking like Omer Asik. Do you really want that? Jeremy's being a professional. He's working to be a good teammate. He's working to improve his game. He's working to deal with some of the nonsense that he's got to deal with around the team, in my opinion. And on that same point, we just heard, I believe, James Harden might be getting sued by a Lakers fan for allegedly striking them or something. And you saw Dwight Howard get the technical or the $25,000 fine or whatever it is for throwing the ball in the stands at fans that were heckling him. Guess what? You're never going to hear that type of stuff about Jeremy. And that's more of why we like him. So Jeremy's in a situation with teammates that may have big egos, may have some impulse control issues, and a coach that's maybe not that good, but he's handling it well. And let's be honest here, he's getting paid pretty well to handle it. And so he's doing his thing. I've mentioned before, and it was in the recent ESPN New York Ian O'Connor article, one of the executive around the league said Jeremy could be a top 6 to 10 point guard. Believe me, people are watching. And I don't mean haters, I mean actual talent evaluators that have some idea of what they're talking about and don't have a grudge against JLin. When the time comes, he's going to get his chance. So what he has to do now is keep preparing for that time. And that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing, regardless of what McHale does or what he doesn't do. And I'm proud of him. I think it's great. Don't cause a ruckus or all this. People, trolls over on JeremyLin.net. Oh, nobody's going to respect him. They don't respect in America if you're not strong. And that's nonsense. These are trolls, in my opinion. Don't react to them. Some of the trolls are very obvious. I know there's one troll in particular on JeremyLin.net, in my opinion, who's incredibly obvious. They're not even trying to hide that they're a troll. But there are other trolls that are more sophisticated. And they'll say stuff like, yeah, I like Jeremy and this and that. And then they'll have that. So they'll kind of lure you in. And then they'll say a bunch of negative stuff or a bunch of inflammatory stuff. From what I can observe over there, most people know these people are trolls. But I'm not sure everybody knows they are. So be careful of these people. If you hear something that's kind of wishy-washy, it's probably a troll, particularly on a site that's a Jeremy Lin fan site. Be careful of these people. Jeremy does not need to act out. He does not need to cause a scene. He needs to do exactly what he's doing, which is be a professional, do your job, and rise above. And that's exactly what he's doing. He has substantially improved his game. He's performed extremely well this entire year. Yeah, you have your bad nights. Everybody has their bad nights. LeBron James has bad nights. So does everybody else. That's fine. That's not a big deal. And as we said, things didn't work out really well for the team in the Dallas game. I know everybody, the starters look great. Yeah, they looked great until they got destroyed in the last 10 minutes or 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. So that's not going to work. That's not good enough. You can look great for 3 quarters. You need to look good for 4 quarters. And again, Jeremy had nothing to do with that. He wasn't on the court. So who are you going to blame? James Harden. People say, you're not calling James Harden a YMCA player. James Harden's defense is pathetic. And I've said that. It's embarrassing. I don't talk about James Harden a lot because these videos aren't about James Harden. These videos are about Jeremy. They're about the whole team, but I'm usually talking more about Jeremy. I'll talk about other teammates when they're really good or really bad. And I'll talk about Patrick a lot because he and Jeremy are both point guards, and they're competing for minutes. So I'll talk about Patrick more. James Harden's defense is ridiculously bad. And I think a lot of it's bad because he doesn't care about it, from what I can tell. James Harden's gotten ripped by national media because of his defense. So I'm not defending James Harden at all. I just don't talk about him very much because he's not the focus of the videos. But that doesn't mean I don't think James Harden doesn't look like a YMCA player, particularly on defense, because he does. I just don't focus on it very much. What I mentioned in the video was that Patrick played a lot because he had to try to cover up for Harden's incredibly poor defense. I mean, you saw the play where Harden just let Vince Carter go right by him. I mean, he didn't even move. And the announcer, Bill Worrell's like, yeah, it's almost like he was patting him on the rear end, just like, great drive, Vince. I mean, it was ridiculous. Jeremy tries. Sometimes Harden doesn't even look like he's trying. And this goes to what Dwight Howard was saying, and I'll get to that in just a second. So the videos revolve around Jeremy Lin. If I think Jeremy did great, I'm going to say it. And the woo and everything. If I think Jeremy has to work on some things, then I'm going to say that. But because the videos are primarily concerned with Jeremy, not with James Harden. James Harden is a guy who has a tremendous amount of ability. He's a tremendous player. It's clear to me James Harden has a whole bunch of maturing to do as a person, as a player, as a teammate, etc. So don't think that I'm whatever about James Harden, because I'm not. I'm really disappointed in James Harden in a number of different ways. And I said it on Twitter. I said it in one of the videos. Now you understand why James Harden may have wanted Patrick to start, because he doesn't want to play defense, apparently. And so that means someone's got to play it. And because everybody thinks Jeremy can't play it, well, if you're James Harden, well, let's bring Patrick in here and he can guard my man for me. And I can concentrate on putting up stats and looking like superhero guy. And that's what happened in the Dallas game. That's what I said. Now the jig is up. We saw it in the Dallas game. McHale put Patrick on Monte Ellis, which is not going to work really well. Montre is too big for Patrick, and Patrick's not fast enough to stop Monte. Now, he can do a better job than James does, but it's not enough. Monte, I think Monte's like 6'4", 6'5". He's not going to stop. Patrick's not going to stop him. Not consistently. So I think the Dallas game exposed a lot of all of what's been going on in a lot of ways. Maybe McHale does want to play Patrick more in general, and now it seems like he has to play him to help protect James. Well, so that means now we see why Jeremy might be getting the short stick here. Well, I actually welcome that. Let it all get out there. Let's see the truth here. And we got to see more of the truth in the Dallas game in a lot of different ways. So good. That's great. Now, I did not get to read the Chris Baldwin article, but I know what Chris Baldwin writes, so I have a good idea of what he wrote. I'm sure he ripped McHale and said Jeremy should have been in there more and the team blew it. And he's absolutely right. I agree with all of that. I don't need to read Chris Baldwin's new article because I know what he's going to write. And that's good. I know he will defend Jeremy. Read his stuff. Don't listen to JLin Rose or any of this other stuff. Not that I dislike JLin. I like JLin, but I'm not sure I'd be going to JLin to listen to a whole bunch of information on Jeremy Lin. That's all I can say. What Dwight Howard said in this new Chronicle article, apparently, was that he thinks guys need to take themselves out of the game when they're tired. Well, take a really wild guess who that might be about. Might be about the guy who didn't play a whole bunch of defense in the game. If you're too tired to play defense, get out of the game. So my guess here is that Dwight's sending a message to Harden and to McHale, like, don't do this. Dwight is somebody who is extremely focused on defense. Remember, he called out Kobe last year when they were both with the Lakers. He called out Kobe on I think it was on national TV in a huddle. It was like, dude, you missed your assignment. And then Kobe was like, oh, don't call me out. We should keep this behind closed doors. Yeah, it's not so fun when you're getting ripped, Kobe. It's okay for you to call out Dwight or your media people to call Dwight out, but you don't like it when he calls you out. Dwight will call guys out for defense. And I'm good. That's great. Yeah, the team is not accountable enough. They need more accountability. Now, that includes Dwight. But if Dwight's willing to step up and call guys out on stuff, good. The team needs that. Because I don't know if McHale's going to do it. Somebody needs to do it. Look, Jeremy did it with Dwight in the Lakers game. I think that's what led to, supposedly Dwight yelling at Jeremy, because I think Jeremy was like, look, dude, you got to go guard that guy that got free or something along those lines. So I think what Dwight was saying, in my interpretation, is that he meant it about Harden, but he also might have meant it a little bit about Patrick. There was a time in the game, and I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was third quarter, fourth quarter. Patrick got tired. But the thing that was good with Patrick was that he asked to come out, but he might not have asked quick enough. I think, I remember him kind of just being slow in transition a couple times. But I do think Patrick will ask out. So I don't think it's primarily about Patrick. I think it was more about Harden. In other words, don't play 40 minutes just to get offensive stats when you're not guarding anybody because you're hurting the team. And we've got capable guys on the bench. Let them play. Right, stat guy, let them get some run because we need to win here. Now, it's not about you putting up big stats. That's my take on what Dwight said. And I'm glad that he said it. Look, the team should have won the game. Simple as that. They got outscored. What? The team was up, 14 points going into the fourth quarter? They got outscored by 17 points in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it's on the road. You don't want that to happen. But it is a young team. There are egos on the team. There are people on the team, including the coach, who might not be the greatest ever in terms of strategy or whatever, or thinking about the game, at least right now. Maybe they improve and guys will mature, but there's a lot for this team to overcome. I do think Jeremy would do better on a different team in terms of all of this stuff. Less ego, better coaching, these types of things. But that's not where he's at right now. He's still got a year plus this year on his contract. The contract won't last forever. When the contract is up, Jeremy can do what he wants to do. But for now, hang in there and do what he's doing. He's doing great. He's having a great year, no matter what anybody says. No matter what anybody says. He's having a terrific year so far. And I'm looking forward to the Minnesota game tomorrow. I expect him to do well again. The thing with Minnesota is they don't have a shot blocker. Guess what that means? That means Jeremy going to the rim. So I'm definitely looking forward to that game. So that's about it. I just want to make this to clarify everything. Again, I love Jeremy Lin. I defend him. Not a hater. I have to be honest, but those were the specific things that I meant as regards limitations, YMCA player, and speed of the game. So I hope that clarifies things a little bit and eases the mind of people that were upset with me. The main thing I can say to you is, number one, believe in Jeremy. Believe in him, just like I believe in him. Jeremy is an excellent player, and he's only improving. And he's only going to improve, given, hopefully, that he maintains his health and that he gets a chance to play, which he should have gotten more of a chance in the Dallas game. I wish he would have, but that will happen every now and then because McHale's the coach and he's going to do stuff like that, even if he shouldn't do it. The second thing is, don't get hitched to the emotional roller coaster of every single game. And if things don't go well for Jeremy, don't let trolls and haters bait you. Don't pay attention to them. So if it's not a great game and you don't want to hear the stuff, the negativity, turn off the computer. Don't go to Twitter. Don't go to Clutch fans if you think they're going to diss Jeremy. Just don't go down that road. That's my advice to you. Again, and someone like me, I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes. I will say things you don't want to hear about Jeremy. I won't always get it right. And I know that, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to do my best to sell it like I see it. But I like Jeremy, and I believe in Jeremy, and I'm not the enemy. I can assure you of that. I don't spend a whole bunch of time going around and defending Jeremy because I'm the enemy. I believe completely in Jeremy. I know what Jeremy can be. I can see it. And he's well on his way to getting there, even if there's going to be little bumps in the road like the Dallas game. And bumps in the road that might not be his own fault. Might be because a teammate's doing something. Might be because McHale. I do think Dallas was very keyed in on Jeremy defensively. Rick Carlisle is a great coach. He's a much better coach than Kevin McHale, in my opinion. I wish he coached Jeremy. he knows what Jeremy can do. And so some of the alignments and the sets that they were using, I think they did some zone defense and stuff. Guess what? That hurts Jeremy because Rick Carlisle knows he needs to slow down Jeremy. That's going to happen. And that's up to the teammates and the coaching staff for Houston to adjust to that. And Jeremy, in time, will adjust to it himself. He'll be able to deal with different looks on defense, and etc. So that's it. Again, I've made the examples with LeBron in the 2011 finals when Dallas shut him down. This happens. This is part of the process. And as I mentioned in the original video about the game, I'm glad it's happening. Because the more it happens and the quicker it happens, the quicker Jeremy can adjust to it and go to the next level as a player. And that's what he's going to do. That's what he's doing. And I'm looking forward to watching that continue. So that's it for now. Looking forward to tomorrow night's game against the Timberwolves. As I mentioned, your comments below, thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, hopefully this clears up whatever thoughts people might have had. Again, I am PFV Paula Villarreal, the NBA expert. Come and join us on Facebook. Come and follow us on Twitter. Come talk with us on Twitter. I haven't been there as much recently. Sometimes I can't be there that much. It takes a lot of time, but I'm there when I can be there. I do like talking with people over there. Thanks a lot for watching Conservative New Media. We strive to be the #1 Jeremy Lin YouTube fan channel. Hang in there, everybody. Everything's going to be fine. Jeremy's going to be fine. Even if the teammates aren't perfect and McHale's not perfect, Jeremy just needs to do his thing. That's what he's doing. Let's just keep on rolling on here. So that's it. Take care. Talk to you soon.